Hey gang, Kevin here, Life22. it's a it's supposed to be a beautiful day today. At least from a temperature standpoint. I actually had to find out the temperature for my daughter yesterday of today, the estimated temperature, and it was supposed to be in like about 59, 60 degrees today. But actually, then now come to think about it, I did not stare at the part that tells you what the weather's supposed to be. You know, whether it's raining, clouding, overcast, partly sunny, whatever. Torrential downpours, who knows? But it'll be 60. So it might be 60 and wet, or it might be 60 and sunny. I have no idea. But thanks for tuning into the show this morning. I know most of you tune in here for my weather reports. um, but yeah, so I want to do just a brief podcast this morning. I did get a chance to listen to the Common Council meeting yesterday. That was from Tuesday. That was astonishing, right, to say the least. It just so I'm going to do brief comments on it, and then I may pull up the council meeting and do a play-by-play with it coming up here in the near future. But I'm not sure. I'm debating on it. I think I said a lot yesterday that kind of covered most of what these people were complaining about. And so I do have a few points, right? Like, okay, they had some councilmen from the nation, and they had some councilmen from the city of Salamanca, and then they had residents from Salamanca and the nation show up, and they had some residents from the city show up. And they kind of, like, everything that I talked about yesterday kind of just like squelched almost all of their talking points, because, like, let's say the city fixes all those issues that they're having, right? Like, well, every so often, every major rainstorm, there is a discharge into the river, and it's, variable from 20,000 gallons to the biggest one was estimated at 2 million gallons, which we talked about yesterday. That's not a huge, like, it's not the end of the world comparatively to how much actual sewage is in the sewer lines, which is 2%. We discussed that yesterday. On average, it's 2%, excluding during rainstorms, at which point it is like a negative exponent percentage. Like it is so negligible. But then it's like, okay, so why? And then the water is dirty before it gets to Olean, and it's the same amount of dirty before it leaves. It's like, it's not our duty to clean the river at our portion, because then the next guy's going to dump into it or whatever. So it's like, what causes all that? So we'll be delving in deeper in the near future into that, which, like I pointed out yesterday, the county health department, I believe, has all the documentation for that, and I'm going to be delving deeper into that. Like, the fact that they, like, that farm runoff, but nobody wants to touch it because nobody wants to be a farmer. Like, there's nobody who wants to be a farmer anymore, but we need farmers. So what do? They incentivize farmers. So what are they not going to do? They're not going to hold farmers accountable for the fact that they fertilize the soil, and then when the rain hits the soil, all that biological matter ends up making its way into streams and tributaries, creeks and whatever, and then it goes to the Allegany River, and then they're like, well, we found all this biological mass that does not belong to people or sea creatures in the river, or they don't belong. So it's like, well, that's mainly because of farm runoff, but it's not really because of the 2% mixed in with billion gallons of rainwater, and then diluted into a river that's already overly saturated because it's flooding out, right? So, but then, so you take all that information, right, and then a lot of the concerns from residents of the nation, residents of Salamanca, people that live alongside the Ohio, as they call it, which in Seneca means beautiful river. You can smell it. You can see the turds floating down the river. It's like, you can see the poop floating down the river. Like, no, you can't. No, you can't. When it's flooding outside and it doesn't discharge, you can look in the river and you would think that millions of people are pooping in it, because it's all the mud turned up. Everything from washing from everywhere is just mixing. There's nothing stable at the bottom of that river except for stone, because everything is just turbulating. Like, you could lose your minivan. It'd be in Mississippi in like a day. Like that's so to say that like when the city is constantly discharged, it's like on a crisp sunny day there is no poop. The amount of like from the city of Olean and from all available metrics, like we are on par with almost every other municipality. The lady in Salamanca at that meeting said that she's like Salamanca's in 99.9% compliance for not discharging in the river. So it's like, okay, well, you're 1% responsible then too. And then she goes, we've never discharged in the river. So how are you not 100% then? I don't understand that logic. Like everybody does it to an extent, to a degree. It's inevitable. That's like making people not poop. Like, oh yeah, well, I'm such a good human being. I practice and I eat this and I've got my diet tuned right in where I make like one little rabbit poop a day and my goal is to make no poop. Like, it doesn't happen. It doesn't. Even if you try, and I don't know. It's mind boggling, these people. Like, you can smell it. Have you ever taken a poop in the woods? Like, you ever been camping? Like, you ever been at a frat party? Like, if somebody takes a poop somewhere and it's not locked inside of a house or in a bucket or something like that, or in a pipe where it tubulates it up, I don't know if that's a word, tubulate. It could be. But it like, if you're in the woods and you take a dump in a bucket, right? Because you have a bucket available, and you go near it, that bucket makes it smell worse than it normally would. But if you were to take a crap in the grass, you actually have to almost step in it. The same with dog poop, anything else. Dog poop smells just as bad as human poop. The problem is that like you don't notice it until you step in it and you kind of like reopen it because it dries out relatively quickly, and its aromatic smell, the thing that propels into the air, dissipates. And like so what you're catching is like the continuing of the biology. So once the outer layer, it's just like, so if you have to be right on top of a poop that's in the grass in front of you, how can you smell it like half mile or a quarter mile away in the river? Like, oh, I see the river over there. Oh my God, you smell the poop. Like, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And it's just like, okay, so people are exaggerating. So, okay, So that's my first point. Then there's a crazy lady that comes up there and like certifiably, like her and then all of her kids come up there and they're talking about how the city needs to stop dumping in the river because the same stuff the city is dumping in the river is causing their skin to burn when they turn the pipes on in their house. It's like, those are two different types of water. One's potable and one they're claiming is raw sewage. So like, there's a difference here, people. Like, we're not pumping river water directly into your house unfiltered. No municipality is. There are so many health standards. So even just to their claim about the potable water burning their flesh, there's so many health standards and different things that a municipality has to jump through in order to provide potable water to its residents. Private sector or public sector, the requirements are high because water is important. Like, we say that, and that's why like they're making a mountain out of a molehill with this issue. Like, yeah, should it be corrected? Yeah, maybe. But then, like, you're still going to have a filthy river. You're still going to have a river that kills the fish during testing because it's polluted from some other source. It's either being polluted upriver, which would make most sense because it's negligibly the same from when before it hits Olean to after it hits Olean, or it's that runoff that we talked about. So, I mean, like, you're still not addressing that issue. Oh, yeah, Olean fixed their sewage issue. Now it's all clean. It's crystal clear. Let's drink it. And then they all get sick. It's like, well, because you didn't clean it. You didn't fix it. You didn't fix the problem. Because the city of Olean isn't your problem. Like, I got cancer from doing this, 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 and this, and you start naming like 15 different things. And then you pick the thing that like is 1% likely to cause you cancer. And then you're like, oh, that must be the issue. It's like, it's not my diet. It's not it's not the asbestos I would used to mix up in a bucket and smear on pipes. It's not the, oh man, you could go into rabbit holes on that one. Like, it's not my exercise habits. It's not the fact that I'm sedentary most of my life. It's not the fact that I sit next to a TV, like 4 inches from my crotch, and then I wonder why I'm infertile and I've got like nut cancer. Like those are the things that cause cancer. And then you're like, oh, it could be this little 1% thing. It could be the fact that one time a lady who used to sit under an asbestos ceiling tile sneezed on me and gave me the flu. And it's like the flu transmitted. Like, no, nope. Most likely that's not the reason. And then that's very similar to what the issue is here. It's just like it's so diluted that like it's probably it's less than it's infinitesimally small, the cause of river pollution, right? By the city of Olean's sewage discharge. And it's like there's other municipalities that are dumping way more than we are, and it's like we're on a consistent basis, like, and we're the bad guys. But um, oh well. So there was a gentleman there that made a lot of sense. It made a lot of sense. If you want to discuss this issue, let's sit down and discuss it. And he brings me into the next point. But he came to the public comment, and he was an older gentleman. His name was Don White, and Don seemed to make a lot of sense to me. It's like, you know what? I'll talk with that guy. That guy seems to be making a lot of sense. Let's talk with him. But then it also gets into the main issue that I have when I was on the council, and we needed to get something done. You know what we did? We reached out to people, kind of like what I do on this channel, where I reach out to all these different professionals. People from sewer plants all over the county, people from the DEC, people from the health department, people from like I talk to these people. I do my homework, I do my research, and it's never always right. Like you read a paper by somebody who spent hours, hundreds of hours writing a dissertation on something, and it's like, yeah, but we're human and we don't know everything. So like all the information you gathered could be like, 90% right. You know what I mean? So it's like, but it's more educated than the average Joe who has like 30 seconds watching a clip on YouTube of a council meeting. Like, so, but you know what you do as a councilman? You reach out to those municipalities and you say, hey, I have an issue with your municipality. Can we open a dialogue? Can we open lines of communication? Can we set a meeting for me and some of my councilmen to meet with you and some of your councilmen and your mayor and my president of my chief? What I don't know how their structure is. They had a president, Conrad Seneca, that his letter was read, but he didn't make an appearance. But it's like I don't know how their council structure works. I know that they have elders and they've got. I don't. So there is where my knowledge is lacking on the nation, but it's one of those like, is it like more we have this figurehead and then we have the legislative body, and so like the figurehead stuff is like the chief and the elders, and they make more of our like religious, cultural laws, and then we have more of the council that kind of handles, code complaints and little things that the nation, the Seneca Marshals will go handle, which is their police force, and they work in coordination with Salamanca PD and the sheriffs of Cattaraugus, and it's one of those like, okay, but I mean, I'm just like, reach out, reach out. You know what Olean doesn't do if we had a problem with Salamanca? We don't go to their public comment and just start yelling at them or even just like making points at them. It's like you do that because you want to be in front of the paper. And that is a big contention with me. Like, yeah, ask the mayor, ask the council members, ask them. And when I say ask them, I don't mean go to the next public comment and speak, because that's what you do when you want to be the squeaky wheel and no one's answering you. If they had made an attempt to reach out to the mayor, if they had made an attempt to reach out to the common council, I would say, if they just fell on deaf ears, like the guy from Cattaraugus, Glenn, if nobody responds to his emails, yes, then go to the council meeting, right? Maybe you're saying the same thing and we're giving you the same answers, or maybe we're giving you the answers that we have, but you're also not an elected official. You're just a resident. So like, they're probably going to treat your emails and phone calls a little bit differently than they would like the chairperson of the Seneca Nation, like of their council. Like, okay, hell, let's set a meeting. Let's sit down. Let's discuss it. Let's have conversations like, I'd like to bring in my water and sewer expert. I'd like to bring in these people. Okay. And you non-hostile, just, I want to have a conversation. You do that by sending out an email, a phone call, a text message if you prefer. I'm just saying, like, you do that. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. Doesn't have to be behind closed doors. Like, you can say, hey, listen, the city of Olean or the Seneca Nation could reach out to the paper and be like, listen, I've reached out to the mayor. I've reached out to the common council, the council president. I've got a meeting set up. We've got a meeting set up. We're going to talk about this. You can let the people know that you have a meeting. You don't have to come across so like audaciously. And and the way you make initial contact makes it seem like you're throwing stones when you come to the stone throwing podium, which is really what it is. People don't go up there to like, I want to thank the police department for doing a great job. You never like typically hear that. Like you might hear it in the middle of somebody's rant against the city and they'd be like, well, the fire department's really good, but the streets stink. And like you hear these rants and it's like they might pepper in a comment, a compliment, but they're really there to throw stones. And that is a stone throwing podium. And if you're here for peace, if you're here to have a discussion, then you don't just go to the stone throwing podium and just like start wailing stones at people, because they're going to act defensively, which I don't blame them. You don't get your point across. And they can act defensively if they didn't answer you, but at least you're more justified when you're throwing stones, because it's like, hey man, I'm exercising every available option. And you don't start with war, which is what that is. That is the war call. Like I'm showing up here to this podium to declare war. Like that's. I mean, if you want peace, like Mr. Don White said, then reach out. Reach out. I'm sure any one of the councilmen would reply to your email, would pick up your phone call. If they didn't recognize the number and you left a voicemail, I'm sure they would return your call. They're not like, especially if you hold a position of authority and you're not like this crazy lady with her 3 sons that showed 2 sons and a daughter. I don't want to biologically misgender somebody. They like, you don't show up, because essentially when you show up to that podium, anybody who speaks that night gets lumped into the body politic of it all. Like the what do you call it? I like to think of it as Borg from Star Trek. It's the collective, right? You become part of the collective. So now all of a sudden, and then the entire crowd applauding every single person who spoke, even when they were up there talking about how they have scabs bleeding on their skull, or how their wounds because of the smell from the sewer plant that they lived near. Like I'm sure it smells at the sewer plant, like nearby. Like, but that's what you get when you live near a sewer plant. It treats sewage. Like they actually collect it. They screen out the good, you know what I mean? Like the effluent water gets purified and sent out, and then what's left is things digesting and stinking, right? Like so, and it doesn't smell as bad as you would surmise, but it does stink. Like then the kid's like, I have open wounds on my chest from my chest surgery, and it's like, I mean, like the open wounds on your chest are not getting like infiltrated by like that odor you smell at the sewer plant. Like you're not like, that's not the reason why you're. It's just it's nonsense. Anyways, when you lump those people in, it hurts your cause, because if you're trying to make a point, they just disarmed you. Like they just like took clips out of your gun. You don't. That's why you also pick and choose who you bring with you for your speaking topic. You try to come in a pack. So you say like, okay, here's the beginning of it, here's the end of it. Everybody who spoke here was, you coordinate a little bit better. And they didn't even do that. Like they let the crazies like pepper themselves in, and it's just like it disarmed your argument. But like, and so then the only thing I go to listen to is like, I'll listen to each individual at that point, because the collective doesn't make sense to me. Or the people that say you poop in the river, I live near the river, you can smell the poop from the river. It's like, no, you can't. Okay, all these different arguments. Come to the table. If you think this is the issue, and maybe you'll have a conversation with a city official who will point out all the things that I've pointed out on this channel that people refuse to listen to, people refuse to educate themselves on, that says, hey, maybe you aren't 100% the problem, but we don't like the fact that you're pooping the pool. Like, hey, okay, nobody wants somebody to poop in the pool. Like, accidents happen. Like, let's, we'll work on remediating it, but we are not the direct cause of this. And so sitting down to the table, at least having that discussion with officials, and then at which point you can take meeting minutes and you can pass them along to the press, and then the press can, hopefully give people the true, honest story, at which point then you're like, oh man, that's, it's good to see that people are coming, like they're actually doing something. And but when all these other people are like, we're outraged and you don't return our calls, like we didn't call, like you didn't call. Unless one of you did call, at which point I would love to hear it in the comments below. I'd love you to email me, reach out to me. My cell phone is readily available. I really do highly recommend that that we do sit down and have this conversation, and I think it's going to be more helpful than not, because just to continue to come up and throw stones at the common council is not helping, and it just propagates this like misinformation. I don't like using those terms, but I mean that's really what it is. Like it's uneducation. Like people, there needs to be a good PR. I mentioned that yesterday, but that said, gang, it's half the time that we normally do, but we'll catch you tomorrow. Life 22. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and enjoy the 60-degree weather, rain or shine. All right, guys. See you tomorrow.